Very first ever diagnosis was depression, major MDD, major depressive disorder. When I was in 7th grade. I was either in 6th grade or 7th grade, but I'm 80 to 90% sure I was in 7th grade, because it's when I was going to River City Science Academy, and my whole life was just hell around that time, so. I was very, very certain that I had something mentally and emotionally wrong with me way before 7th grade. It just didn't become apparent to those around me until 7th grade, and that's when I got treatment, and that's when I received my diagnosis, which a few years later turned into PTSD, which they believed that I had all along. It's just I was misdiagnosed originally. So please, don't think that this is something that happens overnight. All of the horrible things that have happened to you in your life, they didn't just happen overnight. So there's no way in hell you're going to be able to overcome all of those things overnight. I know it probably doesn't seem like it, but I do put a decent amount of time and effort and thought into my videos. I also try not to, because I want to keep my videos raw, but having raw videos sort of takes away from your audience, so to speak, in the sense that more people, like whenever you sit down to watch a YouTube video, you're looking for somebody to jump straight to the point. You know, most people anyway tend to dislike the people who, you know, self-promote themselves and take the time to script out their videos and plan them ahead. And it just sort of makes them come across as fake. But really they're just trying to make it more user-friendly for you. You know, by scripting it, you're saving, you know, you're cutting off what could have been a 30-minute video and turning it into a 5-minute video. There's so many different reasons behind why people act fake, especially if it's in front of a camera, because, you know, it saves time. It saves a lot of hassle for both the viewer and the creator. But these types of videos are the types of videos that can't, or at least shouldn't be edited and shouldn't be, maybe they should, you know, for the moments like, a lot of the time whenever I talk about videos like this, the parts where you'll see where I clip things out because like it's just sort of jumping from one part to the other, 80% of the time that's because in between that time I was standing or sitting there staring off into one direction, staring off into one direction, just kind of dissociating. So, you know, for times like that, editing is necessary. Like in my video, what it's like growing up with a mom, the parts where it just kind of jumps from one part to another's because I spent, you know, however many minutes or seconds of my time in that video staring at one. God knows what I was staring at. Like, most of the time, I just do what I'm doing right now and I stare out this window. So if you guys are ever wondering what I'm looking at, it's the trees and the sky. It kind of helps me gather my thoughts when I'm recording a video. But part of my disability is disassociating, you know, staring off into space, going off on tangents that have absolutely no relevancy. So making videos is very hard for me. At this point you're probably thinking, well, what, do you have like ADHD or something? No, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I was diagnosed with PTSD at 16 years old. So a couple years ago, literally a couple years ago, 18, so 2 years ago, I was diagnosed. It's hard to wrap my head around because it feels like just yesterday. I remember walking into my new therapist. Whoa. So many things just came to my mind at once. Let me start over really quick. I'm making this video because a day ago, like less than 24 hours ago, I made a poll on Instagram. 2 different polls, 4 different subject matters that I'm interested in: beauty, fitness, mental health, and what was how-tos, I think was the fourth one. And of all of them, the main one that got the most votes on the poll was mental illness, mental health. I'm not sure why. Like, I post a lot more about my contortion, my makeup, my skincare, but I feel like maybe more people voted for mental illness because so many other people make videos about health and fitness and beauty. Like, we have pretty much everything we need out there. I'm sure there are a few more things out there that we haven't discovered yet as, you know, the industry moves on and we get new products and stuff, so it's not like it's a dying industry or anything, it's just few people are talking about mental health. So maybe that's why more people wanted me to speak on it. Or maybe it's just because it's very obvious that I have a mental illness. Or probably a bit of both. Whatever it may have been, here I am recording that video. The intro's sort of weird because it got me to thinking. I always, you know, think ahead, like for my how to kill a ferret video, how to pass a drug test video. You know, most of my videos I think ahead of time, you know, this is what I'm going to cover in this video. This is, you know, the facts that I have, the opinions that I have, and I'm going to combine those to create the content. So usually I, you know, sit down and I plan it all out, and I do my makeup, and I usually try to remember to pull the curtain, but I realized you can see the towel hanging in my other videos, so I always forget that part, but today I didn't. Yeah, usually I, you know, situate the space around me, I get myself mentally and physically ready, but I realized this is not an appropriate video to do that. So here I am. I did not plan anything for this video. I literally pulled out my phone after, you know, I'd already been on my phone looking at the poll results for which video to talk about, and when I saw how many people voted for mental illness, I've never had that many responses on a poll before until I incorporated mental illness being an option. So it was really interesting to me. So I really just dropped everything the second I saw that and hit record. So this is completely raw, which is something I'm not used to. Something that could end up being a waste of time, your time and my time, but could also benefit other people. And I'm willing to make this in the hopes that the latter happens, but I digress. Back to the PTSD thing, I guess, is where I left off. I remember the first time I got my diagnosis of PTSD, I had already seen 4 or 5 therapists, which isn't a lot. Like, to some of you that may be like, whoa, but to others it's like, I've seen like 20, because I've met people that have seen like 20, 30 therapists sometimes, and honestly, a lot of the time, that's what it takes. So I guess that's what this video is going to be about. Just things that I've learned on my journey of diagnoses and medications, and I'm going to try and make it as short and sweet as possible without leaving too much out and without telling too much. This video is going to be a hellhole to edit, but I am ready for the task because this is an important subject matter that has influenced my life unlike any other besides maybe addiction. Just kind of go hand in hand, mental illness, addiction, but a whole nother video. I have so many video ideas and so many things that I want to share with you guys, but it's hard to just, when you have all of these ideas going through your mind, it's hard to grab hold of one and make it happen because you're, fuck. It's so difficult going into my own brain and trying to explain to you how it works because I don't even know how it works, you know? Yeah, I had already seen 4 to 5 therapists come 7th grade, 7th or 8th grade. By 7th or 8th grade, I had seen 4 to 5 different therapists, psychiatrists, both. I could say, I was diagnosed, my very first ever diagnosis was depression, MDD, major depressive disorder, when I was in 7th grade. I was either in 6th grade or 7th grade, but I'm 80 to 90% sure I was in 7th grade, because So when I was going to River City Science Academy, and my whole life was just hell around that time, so. I was very, very certain that I had something mentally and emotionally wrong with me way before 7th grade. It just didn't become apparent to those around me until 7th grade, and that's when I got treatment, and that's when I received my diagnosis, which a few years later turned into PTSD, which they believed that I had all along. It's just I was misdiagnosed originally. That and who wants to give a 7th grader the diagnosis of PTSD? It's pretty fucked up. So when I was in 7th grade, 6th grade and 7th grade, so the end of 6th grade and then pretty much the entirety of 7th grade, I developed an eating disorder. I was actively harming myself, whether it be cutting, bruising myself by hitting myself, or burning myself with cigarettes, or heating up a lighter and then touching my skin. I was basically branding myself. Whatever I could, I felt in the mood for, I guess, I would do. I would starve myself, restricting calories. See, I really want to make separate videos, one for eating disorders, one for depression, one for anxiety, one for post-traumatic stress disorder. One for, therapy and how to therapy and medications and how to maneuver around it, how to figure out what's right for you, or if any of that is even right for you. I will make separate videos for all of that, because I don't want this to just be one jumbled mess covering, or attempting to cover, all of those topics, because that's not gonna work. This is already barely working. Those videos will come, but this video right now is just going to be my attempt at covering the entirety of it. Hopefully I said that right. So yeah, sorry, I always stop to explain myself, and then it gets me off onto another tangent. I just can't. Fuck. So yeah, I was cutting myself, I was starving myself, and eventually somebody noticed. It was a classmate, and then they told a teacher, and then a teacher told my grandparents, or I'm sure that they told the dean, and then the dean told a principal, and then the principal told my grandparents. They were like, she's harming herself, that's not normal, something's very wrong, and I didn't really have many friends. I distinctly remember being in, 3rd grade, or 4th or 5th grade at Hendricks Day School, and most of the time spent in recess, I would be balled up in the corner by myself crying. It wasn't like that every time. I can remember a lot of times where I actually socialized with people, where I actually played with the other kids. But something would always happen. I remember in 5th grade there was this dude, not gonna say his name, because I've moved on from it by now, but sort of. He called me fat. He was like, Brittany's so fat, she looks like she's pregnant, and I was a 5th grader, and I just kind of looked down at myself. And before that, keep in mind, I'm in 5th grade. Most 5th graders don't take the time to overly examine them. I feel like that doesn't usually start. Usually, if you're one of those kids, don't think that I'm discounting you. That's, because I turned into that. I'm not. Most kids don't usually spend their 3rd, 4th, 5th grade years overanalyzing, their body and their face, and just being obsessed with yourself, but in the wrong ways. Negatively obsessing over yourself, not being oh my god, I'm the hottest thing to walk no. But after he said that, keep in mind, this was a dude that I had a crush on. I didn't really like guys growing up. I shouldn't at that age. But I saw myself as one of them. I still do to this day. I don't wanna, I'm not, I'm a woman. I identify as one, I was born one. But I've always, felt more like a dude, because I'm gross, not minus the hair, I had long hair my entire life, completely out of the situation. I just was a tomboy. I just don't want to say that without sounding cringy, because I always hated the girls that were oh, I'm a tomboy, stop. But I was a tomboy, so it was hard for me to develop feelings for people of the opposite gender because I wanted so badly for them to just be my friend. So this one time, I finally get feelings for a dude, and I'm in like 5th grade, 4th or 5th grade, and he calls me fat. Like, Brittany's so fat she looks like she's pregnant, and I was like, man, I finally have feelings for a dude, and this is what I get. Like, and it didn't get better from there. I wish that was like the worst anybody's ever said, like, especially people that I've had feelings for, like, that was just a small thing. But back then, it was everything. That destroyed me, dude. Fuck. I remember going home and, like, playing video games with my dad, and then they made dinner. They made dinner that night, and then they were like, come in to eat. And I was like, I don't want to eat. I'm too fat. It was that same day, bro. Like, I kind of want to laugh looking back on it now, because it did seem so much more minuscule. Or it does seem much more minuscule, but, like, I feel like that kind of started me overanalyzing myself. Like, after that, I started to look at myself in the mirror, and, like, I wanted my grandparents to buy me this body-length mirror. I told them it was so I could take selfies in it. Really, I wanted it so I could monitor my progress as I saw it, losing weight. So from around 4th or 5th grade, you know, I just would get, like, bullied for stupid shit. But it was always by people that I liked. Like, I've never been bullied by somebody that I don't like. I don't know why I didn't do anything to my knowledge, but after that, I just kind of made it a point in my life to just stay far away from other people, because I kind of engraved it into my own brain that people are shit. That everybody is like that, and I'm trying to get away from that, but it's hard. Anyway, so yeah, 7th grade, I started starving myself and cutting myself, and I don't want to blame that kid back in 4th and 5th grade, because I know it was not all him. Like, that one comment didn't start all that. That was just the building of the snowball, so to speak. Like, that combined with more reoccurring traumatic events, all eventually turned into me harming myself, which is really interesting to think about now, because it's like, why do people get hurt by other people and then hurt themselves because somebody else hurt them? Like, I sometimes try to go back and, like, put myself into those shoes again. Like, why was my solution to being hurt by somebody to hurt myself? Maybe it was because I couldn't hurt them, and I really wanted to hurt them, but I couldn't, obviously, because I'd be arrested or hurt back, so I'd hurt myself. Like, if somebody... Yeah. Maybe I just... wanted to feel pain. I don't know why. Like, it doesn't make sense now. It's like fighting fire with fire. It's like, if you have this fire burning and you want to put it out, like, say the fire is the pain that you're going through that other people inflicted on you, and then the way to put out that fire is by hurting yourself. Like, if they've hurt you, so you hurt yourself because you can't hurt them, who's losing and who's winning? Like, they're still winning and you're definitely losing. Like, something that I think is very easy to forget how to do, especially if you've been through a lot yourself, it's hard once something has happened to you, something bad, something horrible has happened to you, and then you think that you've moved on past that. It's easy to forget, like, where you were. So, when something bad happens to you, and then eventually you move on from it, everything's fine for a good while. You tend to forget that that bad thing ever happened, because who wants to dwell and remember those bad things that happened? Like, you should just throw them out the window and move on, but that's not true. For one, if you don't learn from your past, then you're destined to repeat it. God, that just opens up so many more tangents in my mind that I'm not going to go into. I'm going to resist the urge. But it's so easy to just desensitize yourself, to take yourself out of other people's shoes. It's so easy to desensitize and to just unempathize with people when something bad has happened. Because you don't ever want to go back to that bad point. Like, now you're at the top of the world. Like, you're the king of the hill. Like, you worked so hard to get up there. And then you just look down around you at everybody else that's suffering, and it's like, well, that's not me anymore, so that's not my problem. That thought process will kill you and everyone else on this earth. Cannot stress that enough. Empathy is one of the most important things to have in the world. Especially today, because it's so easy to just put your best side out on the internet and to look at everybody else's best sides and to compare your worst sides with their best sides. There's this one post that I saw that was like, stop hating people in their winning season because you don't know what they've lost in their losing season. So basically, every time you see somebody, whether it be a millionaire or just an average person like me, or someone that's, somebody that's very poor, somebody that's somewhere in between, I guess I'm in between, realize that this is so hard to put in the fucking words. I don't know why it irritates me. Like, why are thoughts so hard for me to put into words? It genuinely, angers me. Everybody has ups and downs. Some people's ups and downs feel worse or better than others. But really, we all feel the same pain. Like, one person's... Okay. Me losing my mom is somebody else's losing their dog. Somebody else is losing their dog. I had to say that a second time in case you didn't hear me. Everybody feels things at the same rate, believe it or not. It's very hard, especially me just saying that, comparing me losing my mother to you losing your animal seems very drastic. It's a very big difference, but it really isn't. Because you could have been raised by that dog, and you'd still feel the same whenever it died. I'm trying to think of a better analogy. Everybody feels the same pain. When I lost, say you lose your dog and you feel that pain and you're like, man, there's nothing on this earth that could hurt as bad as losing that dog. And then you lose your mom, say. This is just an example. And then you're like, whoa, I was wrong. This pain is so much worse than losing my dog. but it really isn't. It just feels like it is because the scenario is worse, but you're feeling the same pain. Now, some of you out there who have lost parents are probably very angry hearing that. How are you going to compare the loss of losing your own flesh and blood with that of losing an animal? But believe me when I say, like, if you break your arm, you go, man, this is the worst pain that I've ever felt. And then you break something else, and then you're like, actually, I think this is the worst pain that I've ever felt. Like, it's just because the circumstances around it were slightly more horrible than the last time you broke something. Basically, we all feel the same pain, whether it be, whether you've had very little happen in your life. Like, say, I don't want to make an example, because then somebody will be like, oh, so you're saying that's like a little thing to happen in my life? Well, it's not, because for me that was big. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. Like, for everybody's small, for what one person would consider a small ouch, that's somebody else's broken neck. Like, what I'm trying to say is it's important to place yourself into other people's shoes, but don't always wear them. Like, don't keep them on. You're not supposed to stay in that person's shoes. You're supposed to see what it's like to be in that person's shoes, take the information that you've gained from that, which is known as empathy, taking into consideration this person's feelings. Basically, something that's very hard for humans to do, because even animals, we're an animal. It's a dog-eat-dog world. We are survival of the fittest. It's whoever comes out on top. So empathy does not work in our favor. Technically speaking, empathy is something that could get us killed. And oftentimes it does. It's a dangerous game, but it's one that we must play. Empathy can get you killed because sometimes you feel for the wrong people. Sometimes that's another thing entirely. Empathy is important to have. To be able to understand anything. But it also blurs the lines for so many different things. I ended up diagnosed with PTSD several years later. After seeing my first therapist, I decided therapy wasn't for me. The medications they gave me, which at the time were Celexa, I had also tried Prozac. So in 7th grade, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, all of those grades, I went back and forth through different therapists, different psychiatrists. I was Baker-acted 3 or 4 times. And I was very much losing hope in the fact that I could be cured, or at least helped, assisted with having my face held above the water, so to speak. I was very convinced that therapy just was a dead end, like no solution. Like how could talking about something ever help me? That's what I couldn't fit my head around. Like, how is sitting in a room and talking to another person supposed to fix the god-awful things that have happened? Like, how can speaking about something help? If anything, it'd just make things worse. That's like picking a scab open, right? Wrong. I hope these videos can sort of serve as an example, for that. Something that really needs to be talked about with mental illness is the fact that it needs to be talked about. It's one of the hardest things that you can ever fucking do, but it's the most important. Because the amount of years I spent talking to myself in my own head, just constantly reliving the same things every single fucking day. I don't fucking... Fuck. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. Oh my god, fuck. I'm so sorry. Oh, I did this last video too, and I'm not trying to. The worst thing you could ever do to yourself is to just sit there and think. It's the worst thing, the best thing you can do. It's the best thing because it is very important to let yourself feel. Part of moving on and letting go of things that have happened is reliving them and feeling them in a controlled and safe environment. That is a key factor. If you have been severely abused or neglected, in any way, shape, or form, I don't recommend revisiting your trauma by yourself. Not at first. I want to let you know that I've seen the walls of so many institutions. Not so many, like I could be way more, but I've seen the walls of enough to realize that I've met so many psychiatrists, so many therapists, so many patients with so many different issues, some like mine and some like no other. But what I can tell you is that not one thing worked for all of them at the same time. Not one thing. Everybody's treatment, so to speak, is going to be unique to them. It's taken me... How many years of therapy is that? That's almost 10 years now. Almost 6 to 10 years of therapy. And I'm finally coming to all of these conclusions. So please, don't think that this is something that happens overnight. All of the horrible things that have happened to you in your life, they didn't just happen overnight. So there's no way in hell you're going to be able to overcome all of those things overnight. It took years and years of negative treatment for you to become mentally or emotionally ill. So it's going to take years and years to reverse that, most likely. That may sound terrifying, but it's fucking worth it if you, keep going. If there's one thing I wish I could, look you in the face and tell you, it's to, keep going. So many times, I think about killing myself. And I never find myself, almost never find myself thinking about, God damn, I'm so glad I didn't kill myself. But I should. It's really hard to find reasons to be glad that you didn't kill yourself, but it's so easy to find reasons to want to kill yourself. Sometimes I find it comforting to think about, my animals, my pets. What would happen to them if I did that? You know, if you have kids, what would happen to them if you did that? What would happen to your family? But also times like this, when it comes to your mental health, being selfish is something that you need to learn to do. it's so hard to find a balance between selflessness and selfishness, because both are important. Just like empathy is important, but there are also times when you need to set aside your empathy. When it comes to mental health, I feel like you should always be selfish, but also selfless, to a certain extent. But I remember when I went in to the office of my current therapist, and I sat down with her, and the very first thing that they do is they go, "So why are you here today?" Very first visit to any therapist. So I've been to 5 or 6 or more different therapists, and each time the very first question is, "Why are you here today?" It's the very first visit. Now, I'd say about half of the people that go there to therapy will say, why they're there. The ones that say why they're there are usually the ones who were sent there by somebody. So they know why they're there because, I was court mandated because I tried to kill myself. It was, my family or friends sent me because they were worried that I was going to kill myself. Or I sent myself because I'm worried that I'm going to kill or harm myself. Or maybe not even that extreme. Maybe it's just because you've noticed things that are not how they used to be for you. And so then the other half say, I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. And I think those are usually the people that, I don't know. I don't know what those people are because I wasn't one of those people. But comment if you were. Just comment regardless. I really need to hear other people's thoughts. I'm tired of hearing my own. Mine are so loud and mean. But, yeah. I remember with my current therapist, I sat down. She asked me, why are you here? And for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you out there, that's always a complicated question. Because for me, there were so many reasons why I needed to be there, or why I was there. I was there, let's see, for starters, my mom's dead. So that's enough reason to go to therapy as is, I guess. But on top of that, my dad had left me. I was molested. I was bullied. I had a lot of different reasons for going. I just sometimes wonder why it took so long for them to diagnose me with PTSD. And then sometimes I wonder if that diagnosis is even correct. Because for so many years, they told me I had depression. And I was prescribed all of these pills for depression. And then several years later, I walk into the office. You don't just get your diagnosis the first time you walk in. It took months of me seeing this therapist, and me going over the things that had happened in my life and how I felt about them. After so many months of that, then you see a psychiatrist, and then they tell you, based off of what your therapist has gained from studying you, basically, and then sharing that with me, or the psychiatrist, they decide on a diagnosis. So basically, all the notes they take whenever you're in therapy, it could range from the body language that you were displaying, the way that you gave responses to questions that they're told to ask, the way you responded to questions that they made up entirely themselves. Because the way that people respond to things tells you a lot about them. Because everybody responds to things for a reason. Like, you didn't just wake up knowing to say bless you when somebody sneezed. You heard other people say it, and then you probably asked, hey, why does everybody do that? And then you found out why, so you started doing it. Same thing goes with the reactions. if somebody gets yelled at, or so, not even yelled at, if somebody raises their voice at you, one person will be like, they'll just respond back normally. Another person will yell back and become very angry because, they heard you raise your voice. And then another person will start to cry. They will be very saddened by the fact, even if you weren't being yelled at. And these are all 3 different types of people responding 3 different types of ways, and there are more ways to respond, more different kinds of people. Those are the three primary ones. And the whole point of psychiatry and therapy is to find out the reason behind why that person reacted that way versus the majority of people reacting this way. So psychiatry and therapy as a whole is not an absolute science. It's basically people trying to get together and come up with answers for things that we really don't have the answers to, but we're getting close to. That's also why videos like this, I feel, are of more importance to me than others. Because the only way we can learn is by studying. The only way we can learn about ourselves and our experiences and our brains and how they function is by studying other people's lives and brains and how they function. That's all psychiatry is. It's insane to think about. It's a whole bunch of brains trying to pick apart other brains to figure out how the brains are working, because even though your brain is it's just insane to me how we have these brains and all this information and all of these experiences, and we don't know why or how any of it works. I guess the reason I'm saying this is because I want you to realize not only does therapy take not only can therapy end up taking a very long time, so long of a time that it may very well start to seem pointless and endless, and it isn't. It just seems like that because they're trying their best. Imagine trying to come up with reasons for people's behavior when we don't even know the real reasons. We're basically pulling straws out of a hat, so to speak. But I don't want that to make it seem even more pointless, because it isn't. The only way that we can help mental illness is by talking. If we don't bring forth our problems and how they've changed us, nobody's going to be able to watch that and learn from it and understand. Nobody else is going to be able to say, hey, I've been there too. I think that I react this way because I experienced this. So basically, I hate to say that we're all lab rats experimenting on each other, because that sounds crude, but it's very true. But it doesn't have to be crude. We can make it easy for each other by being open and being vulnerable. But you also have to be careful, because people will take advantage of that. And people will use it against you. This whole video is a mess. It's just going all over the place. But like I warned you and said before I even sat down, that's almost my intention. To just be raw and real and spill forth some very few of the coherent thoughts that go through my mind when talking about this topic. I want to make different videos that are more focused on specific topics and but then that would require planning them out, and I don't want anything, when it comes to discussing mental health, I don't want it to ever be scripted. I don't ever want it to be planned, because that just sort of takes away from it. And I just can't follow a script, because I start thinking about, oh, well, what about this and this and that, and I should have mentioned this, and scripts don't work for me. I'm not good at. Bottom line, talk. talk to a professional, but not everybody has that luxury, that privilege. So if you can't talk to a professional, talk to your friend. Don't talk to all of your friends and family. Don't just talk to any friend or any family member. If you're lucky enough to have, like, a best friend, somebody that can empathize with you, somebody that can listen, not just hear the things that you say, but listen and then give feedback on. Somebody that can do that. Maybe even a teacher, just somebody that, whoever comes to your mind whenever you think of somebody that's empathetic, somebody that always seems to understand the way you think, that's the person you need to talk to. Just having somebody out there in the world that knows the things that you've been through and is still there for you is very important. Take that from somebody who'd never had that. I do now with my therapist. But she'll be leaving. I remember walking into my most recent therapist's office, and I remember going in there knowing that I had a diagnosis of depression, and I expected to see that psychiatrist months after, seeing the therapist, for her to, diagnose me again, being like, yep, you have depression, or maybe, like, anxiety. I could see that. One of the farthest things from my mind ever was PTSD. I never looked into it, I never researched it, I never thought about it. I always thought war, veterans, people who have fought. I never thought about people like me who fought in just day-to-day life, in places that they never should have. So, it came as a shock to me and my whole family, and my boyfriend, when they told us PTSD, because that's more of a... I don't want to say it's more serious than depression, because again, everybody's pain is at the same level. It's just some of us have experienced greater and lesser, but overall, we are all feeling the same pain. It's just the circumstances make it seem more painful or less painful. But I just expected it to stay at, like, depression. The last thing I ever thought that it would be PTSD. And I kind of felt ashamed and embarrassed. Ashamed isn't really a good word. Embarrassed is more of a word, because I felt like I didn't deserve that diagnosis. Like, I felt like I didn't see people get blown apart. I didn't see people... I did see people get killed, but not in that sense. I guess I watched people kill themselves over time, gradually, slowly. But maybe that was worse. Not worse, maybe that was just as bad. Maybe because of the fact I was experiencing this trauma in a circumstance that there shouldn't... Like, when you go to war... I'm trying not to be insensitive to other people's... It's so hard with today's temperature. Maybe when you go to war, it's sort of like bad things are not supposed to happen, but it's a given. It's a 50-50, if not slightly more than 50 chance that something bad or traumatic will happen. You're going to war, possibly taking lives. Obviously, you're going to see some over-the-top traumatic, but you go into that circumstance usually not expecting it to be horrible, but expecting something not good. But when you're just going about life like any other kid in that war zone, is in your own home. It's different somehow. Although it's not different because it's the same fight, just in two completely very different ways. Maybe PTSD in a battleground isn't all that different from PTSD in a bedroom. Again, I feel as though we all feel the same pain and we just don't even know it. We're so quick to be, oh, well, I had this happen and that's way worse than this. And then there's somebody else above that that'll go, well, I had this happen and that's worse than both of y'all. And there could be another person that said, well, I had this happen and that's worse than all three of y'all. Like, you can say that because the circumstances may seem worse. You know, the circumstances surrounding the initial cause of the pain may be worse or better than somebody else's, but really we're just feeling the same pain. The same level of it. Because if I think back to the first time my grandma told me that my mom was dead, I was about 3 years old. 3 or 4. My mom died when I was 8 months old, so I never knew her. And I always wondered, you know, like, I didn't always wonder it. It took me to be about 3 or 4 years old to realize, wait a second, that's my dad. That's my grandma. That's my grandpa. Where's my mom? So, I remember that she sat me down in her bedroom and she was like, I need to tell you something. You know, I said your mom's gone, and like, because she never said she was dead. She just said that she was, like, not here. Like, I assume maybe she was working. Yeah, because work requires you to be, unless you're in the military, yeah, work totally requires you to be gone for 18 fucking years. But I believe that. And so one day she sat me down and she was like, yeah, she's not coming back because she's dead. She has been dead the whole time. And at first, I didn't get it. Like, it was like, what do you mean she's dead? Never even got to meet her. How could she be dead already? Like, that doesn't make sense. Why is my dad still alive? I remember at first just kind of looking at her. Like, this is probably the earliest memory that I have, next to seeing myself on the couch or watching my dad flip through Disney Channel. Earliest memory I remember having is her telling me that, and then just kind of attempting to register it in my little brain. And it took me a while to start crying. But when I did, I realized I had never felt that kind of pain in my life. I remember being 3 or 4, just thinking like, shit, bro, my mom's dead. And my dad left. I remember forcing her to call him after she told me that she's dead. And I remember screaming at my dad over the phone, I miss you, I miss my mom. I had nothing to compare that pain to at that time. But since then, I've lost friends, I've lost more family. Whether it be through death, or just other types of loss, where people leave. And I can honestly say that the pain of finding out that my mom was dead at 3 or 4, I've felt that same pain. I've felt that same pain when my first ferret died. And I can tell you for a straight fact, it was the same pain. Just with different circumstances. So it may seem completely just insane to compare the pain of losing your parent to the pain of losing an animal. But it really isn't all that far off. You know, I feel like the pain of losing your parent lasts for, especially if you lost them in a way that was unnatural or sudden very early on, that pain will last for a longer time than had you lost your dog or your ferret or your cat. But it's the same pain. It just lasts longer and makes you think a different way. Like once you lose your dog or your cat, you may be more like, I don't want another cat or a dog again, or I do want another cat or dog and I want to make double sure that everything is just 100% like everything that I can do right for this dog, just to make sure that, you know, they don't die again, knowing full well they're going to die again. I don't even know what I was trying to say just then. I wish I could say I had some billion-dollar answer to that billion-dollar question. I guess that being, now that all this shit has happened to me, what am I supposed to do about it? And I hate having to say this, but you need to talk about it. You really need to fucking talk about it. Whether that be with somebody that you know can relate to you, empathize with you, understand you, and listen to you. Or whether that be to a camera in your bathroom, in your grandparents' home. Whoever it is that you need to talk to, whichever way is easier, whether it be to talk to a camera and then show another person, or just to see for yourself and rewatch over and over again, or whether it be to talk to a person in a session like therapy, or just a conversation face to face. Whatever you need to do, however you need to do it, just make sure you do it. Don't just sit there and dwell in it. I mean, you need to, that's part of it, but make sure you're dwelling in it in a safe environment. I have a hard time communicating with people face to face. Makes me extremely uncomfortable. I don't like talking, especially about my feelings with other people, in person. I love talking about my feelings online. Whether it be talking, typing away to somebody, or sitting here now by myself recording this. But if I'm having to sit face to face with another person and tell them I'm very uncomfortable, that is pushing me beyond my limits, like just the setting of therapy. Even if the therapist that now I've been seeing, all my other therapists that I've been to, I hopped around from. I stayed for maybe a couple months, a couple weeks sometimes, maybe even one visit. This one lady I saw one time and never came back. There's no one size fits all for anything in life, but especially mental health and therapy. Do not give up. Continue pursuing all kinds of treatments. Tip your toes in every single type of treatment there is out there. Whether it be therapy or medication, meditation, hiking, some people really don't need to talk about it. Some people, with the things that have happened to them, they just need to occupy themselves. They need to distract themselves. They need to get far away as possible from the things that had happened to them. And if you're one of those people, do that. But I feel like a majority of people need to talk about it. And that's something that's hard to accept and to go through with. But I encourage you to try different ways of talking about it. Don't just see that this way works for one person, so, don't beat yourself up just because it doesn't work for you. Your brain comes with knowledge and experiences and emotions that only you, they're designed and made only for you. Nobody else can feel that to the same extent. They can come very close, but they can't fully be in your shoes 100%. What I'm trying to say for like the 50th time now. Fuck. Oh. There's so many different types of treatment. You have to try. You have to try some of them, if not all of them. Because at least one has to at least, if not work, then help moderately. At least I fucking hope so. For your sake, and for everybody's fucking sake. For my sake. Do not give up. Because there's somebody, whether even if it's just one person, or a whole room, or stadium full of people, somebody out there has been where you are. If you think about it, I don't know how many right now, I'm gonna guess anywhere between 7 to 10 trillion people. Maybe billion. I'm not good with numbers. But there's a lot of people out there, right? So, just statistically speaking, it's impossible for there to not be somebody out there that hasn't gone through what you have. It's statistically impossible. There are just so many people out there living in so many different places with so many different kinds of people around them, experiencing so many different things in so many different ways, so many different times and places. Somebody out there has to have been through the same things as you, if not very, very similar. Somebody. So you truly can never be fully alone. And even if they're not alive today, maybe somebody a couple hundred years ago went through what you did and they wrote a book on it, you don't even know about it. Like, fuck, like, it's statistically impossible for you to be alone is what I'm trying to say, so don't, it's so easy to feel alone. Especially if you're mentally ill. Whether that be depression, anxiety, PTSD, BPD, schizophrenia, anything. It is so easy, even if you have nothing, like even if you haven't been diagnosed with anything. It's so easy to feel alone when we have a phone. Most all of us have phones or some sort of device, hence how you're watching this. We have at our fingertips access to Googleplex amount of, which is basically next to infinity times infinity, amount of resources, knowledge, other people, but we seldom make use of it. And that blows my mind, but at the same time it doesn't. Because it's much easier and safer to just accept that things have happened and just leave it at that. But I feel like if you want to truly live, you have to take what's happened to you by the balls, quite literally. So it's a lot more than just accepting it. You have to actually rein that shit in, and you have to be like, look, this happened to me. Now I can do what's easy, but also so hard, and just accept the fact that it happened. Or I can do something with it. Whether that be sharing what has happened to me with other people so that they can know, hey, I'm not alone. Or at least so that they can know, hey, this person had this happen, so they did this, and this didn't help them, or it did help them. Like, so much can be gained from just sharing your words online. Whether it be through a post or a video, there's somebody out there who needs to hear it. Just know that. Like, there's somebody out there waiting to hear the right words to keep them holding on. I'm not saying that you should live your life for other people. Definitely not. But I feel like it helps to think of ways to make use of the horrible things that have happened. Instead of just being like, well, shit, that happened, that fucking sucks, now my life is horrible. Yeah, that's somewhat true, but what if you took that horrible thing that happened and educated other people that have had it happen and haven't had it happen, so that they can know how to prevent that from happening to other people, and also so that they can know how to help people that has already happened to. That's the main reason why it is so important to talk about mental health. So many people are talking about it, but then so many more people aren't. And we really need to work hard to touch the lives of those people who don't want to speak up. They don't need to speak up to everybody. They don't need to do what I'm doing and post it all over YouTube or post it all over anywhere. Keep it to yourself. Watch it. Let yourself cry to it. Let yourself feel, revisit those things that have happened. Let yourself stop. You can keep up that front. Like I was talking about earlier in the video, keep up that front for everybody else to see, because we want to share our good sides to everybody else so they can see it. But also don't forget the fact that you were down at one point, or at multiple points. Never forget the places you were at, because otherwise you can't learn from it. You can't move on from it. Don't just get better and then say, well, to hell with the rest of you, I'm better now, so I'm out. Like, my problems are solved, so... Because odds are those problems are going to come back, especially with that mindset. If you maintain the mindset of, I'm cured now, and nothing bad's ever going to happen to me again, it's going to happen again. And it's going to make you seem a lot less empathetic towards other people. Never forget where you've come from, even if it's horrible. Don't hold on to it, though, either. Just hold on to the lessons that you've learned from it. Otherwise, you will go through it again and again and again. Life will continue to kick your ass until you learn the lessons it's trying to teach you. That's not me saying that, everything happens for a reason. My mom died so that I'd learn the lesson. No, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I don't believe that far. It's not that deep. But... hopefully that makes more sense. Hopefully you gained or learned something from this video in some way, shape, or form. I want to make more videos touching on these topics. I just don't know how well that would work out. Just being the type of person that I am and the way that my mind works, I can't see myself sitting down and being able to stay on topic without scripting it all beforehand, because I just can't do that. But I will try, for my sake and for your sake. So yeah, I really sincerely hope that you learn things from my videos, plural. I'm trying to make them shorter, because I hate people who beat around the bush, and I don't hate the people, but I hate whenever people beat around the bush, and it's very annoying, but that's also very human. That's just people being people, and you can't really be mad at them for that. I mean, you can, but it's just not healthy. So yeah, I'm gonna come back and hopefully have much more collected thoughts. And hopefully I can break down each type of trauma, so to speak, that I've been through, and then assess how that affected me then, now, several years later, and what I've done with that. All of the shit that's happened. If that makes any sense. God, I hope some of this made sense, because I probably sound fucking crazy, but that's because I am. So thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment if you've been, or if you've understood anything that I said. Like, I'm not saying, like, if you understood all of it, but if you understood or related to something that I've said, it'd be pretty cool to know, because it's nice not feeling alone. Because, like I said, it's very, very easy to feel alone. Because this world is fucking huge. But you also gotta remember, it's statistically impossible for you to be alone. It's hard to reinforce that thought, to, like, get rid of all of the, you know, negative, like, thoughts that you have, but to try to replace them with positive ones, which I'll make a video on, I guess. But yeah, whatever. I'm gonna stop talking, because I'm just gonna start going on to more and more, like, fucking tangents, and this video is one giant, like, rubber band ball of tangents, so I'm gonna stop hurting everybody's brain and my own for a little bit. But I'll be back with more videos on mental health, but also not mental health related. I want to make some involving, like, my makeup, which I'm not wearing in this video, so it's like an awkward, like, horrible representation, but yeah, I want to make some more lighthearted videos. But I feel like one theme that my channel is going to have is addiction and mental illness, because those are the two main things that have shaped me as a person. So I just don't want it to be my channel's sole thing, because that could get very unhealthy and very toxic and bad very quickly. So yeah, I'm gonna try and steer away from that, but also steer somewhat towards it. Anyway, I want to shut the fuck up now. I'm so sorry. Time to get rid of the stigma that comes with talking about your feelings and the things that go on in your head. It's 2019, boys. We gotta move on from that. We gotta start wearing our feelings on our sleeve, but not in public. We should wear our feelings on our sleeve to people that deserve it, not to everybody. Otherwise, certain people will manipulate you.